Hello, welcome to the final presentation of the research study of Group 1. The present action research is a qualitative research focused on difficulties to meet in order to work in the research project from the major of Licenciatura en Idioma Inglés, Opción Enseñanza at Universidad de El Salvador, Facultad Multidisciplinaria de Occidente, Semester 1 2020. This research study is divided into 5 chapters. The first chapter, Statement of the Problem, includes a deep description of the problem previously diagnosed through an interview to the teacher in Student of Seminar 2. Moreover, it has the justification of the research, in which the researcher exposed the different reasons why the investigation is worth to study. Likewise, the objectives, research questions, the hypothesis, and the scope that will lead the research team through all the process. In the second chapter, Referential Framework, it provides author support, definition of some key words, and information of important points. In addition, the third chapter, Methodology Design, describes the different steps to carry out through the research study. It follows Chapter 4, Analysis and Interpretation. This chapter comprises the analysis and interpretation of the collected data, in which was classified and organized by the research team in order to triangulate the result obtained. And finally, Chapter 5, Conclusion and Recommendation. Lastly, at the end of the work, a researcher set up in the annexes all the tables, graphs, and tools that they use in the interventions. Chapter 1, a Statement of the Problem. Seminar 2, a student from the major of Licenciatura en Idioma Inglés, Opción Enseñanza at Universidad de El Salvador, Facultad Multidisciplinaria de Occidente, have difficulty for meeting together in order to work in the research project. In this work, the main factor that prevent them from getting together will be discussed in order to look for a solution. 1.1 Description of the problem. Chapters of 2014 said, Scientific research is the systematic investigation of scientific theories and hypotheses. It is the most effective way to obtain and to share knowledge, since it followed the scientific method. For that reason, Seminar 2 students, Group 3 at Universidad de El Salvador, Facultad Multidisciplinaria Occidente, say that they face some difficulties when they try to get together for working in the research project. First of all, students were asked if they have some difficulties for meeting together, and the answer maybe was the most common answer. Knowing that also many of them said yes, it can be seen that meeting together is in fact a problem among them. Students were also asked if their schedule represent an obstacle for attending a meeting, and 52% of students answered affirmative. This means that their schedule are the biggest problem for attending the meetings. To sum up, Seminar 2 students have difficulty for coming together due to some factor like the difference among the schedule or time. In spite of this, showing students how to arrange their meetings in the best hours and days can reduce their problems for attending their meetings. 1.2 Research question. Here, the researchers state 2 different research questions that are: first, in which way must students arrange their schedule so that they can meet at the same day and hour? Number 2, which tools will help Seminar 2 students meet for working in the research project? 1.3 General objectives. To reinforce Seminar 2 Group 1 student changes for meeting in order to work in the research project during Semester 2 2020 at Universidad de El Salvador, Facultad Multidisciplinaria de Occidente. 1.3.1 Specific objectives. The first one, to help students arrange their schedules so they can meet at the same day and hour during semester 2 2020 at Universidad de El Salvador, Facultad Multidisciplinaria de Occidente, to empower students with the use of technological tools such as Zoom, Google Calendar, Google Meet, and Facebook Messenger, so they can work in their research project during semester 2 2020 at Facultad Multidisciplinaria de Occidente. 1.4 Hypothesis. The implementation of different platforms such as Zoom, Google Calendar, Google Meet, and Facebook Messenger can reinforce Seminar 2 when Group 1 students changes to meet in order to work in the research project. From the major of Licenciatura en Idioma Inglés, OPCIÓN Enseñanza at Universidad de El Salvador, Facultad Multidisciplinaria Occidente. How can researchers reinforce Seminar 1 student changing for meeting in order to work in the research project? Through the implementation of different platforms such as Zoom, Google Calendar, Google Meet, and Facebook Messenger. 1.5 Justification of the research. This action research is essential since it will give better chances to get together in order to work in the research project. The action research will contain important information shared by the students who answer that they have difficulties to meet in order to work in the research project. The reality of this situation is that students deal with the problem when they are assigned to work in the research project after classes. However, for the researchers, it will be adequate to give better chances to get together in order to work in the research project. This problem could solve by arranging a student schedule so they can meet at the same time and day. Besides, this action research is essential since it will give students better chances to get together to work in the research project. 1.6 Scope of the research. This action research will conduct only with a seminar to Group 1 of the major of Licenciatura en Idioma Inglés, OPCIÓN Enseñanza at Universidad de El Salvador, Facultad Multidisciplinaria de Occidente. Chapter 2 Referential Framework. Inefficient time management and different schedule among the group members are the main obstacles for students' work meetings. It has been seen that it is hard for them to get together where they do not organize their daily activities, and this gets more complicated when their schedule do not match. Researchers through this work are going to give students some tools that improve their chances to get together, and if they are able to take advantage of these tools, every work meeting will be more productive. 2.1 Students' Meeting. A meeting is an event in which a group of people come together to discuss things or make a decision. Merriam-Webster. Most of the time, students try to meet together in order to work in their project through internet or face meeting, but not all those meetings become successful because in every meeting there will be any kind of problem that students may face. Here, researchers state some tips for having a productive online meetings, either in platforms, apps, or also in face meeting, such as listening in a meeting will be a successful way to achieve what the researchers have planned. Always participate in a meeting. Value other people's time. Value your own time before going to a meeting. Cutting down the meetings are on your calendar and only attending the ones you really need to. Researchers think that taking into consideration of these meetings will become advantages because it could be possible that just one meeting be necessary due to all the good organization of the team. So there will not be any problem for the ones who have troubles in their schedule or the agreed dates. 2.2 Organizing the time. Time is the measurable period during which an action, process, or condition exists or continues. Merriam-Webster. Most students start each semester with high expectations. They visualize themselves being successful in their study, but they are not able to put together a realistic plan or establish a routine that could help them achieve academic success. It is also important to mention that time plays a very important role in a student's life. Most of their academic results depend on how they organize their time. That is why we have to pay attention. EducationCorner.com provides some recommendations to help students organize their time. Some of these tips include: prepare a weekly schedule. Write down on your calendar each class you have for each day of the week. Take a look at your team calendar and write down on your weekly calendar items that need to be completed, and note down the date and time for each assignment. Researchers should first learn about the usage and the reliability of these tools so that later they can show them to the students. In this way, we see that not only students can take advantage of time management tools, but also the researchers will know how useful they are. 2.3. Scheduling meetings. Schedule is to appoint, assign, or designate for a fixed time. Merriam-Webster. It is important to mention that to establish a good schedule will help students to meet online, also to have better opportunities to develop their research work efficiently. So an important point of the researchers they are to check the availability of all attendances, to check everyone's ability, avoid the hassle of going back and forth by asking everyone concerning what the best time for that will be, or come up with possible dates that they can choose from. Clarify which mode of communication will be used during the meeting. Provide detailed instructions in your invite as well, so your attendants will be able to join in without much hassle. With this in mind, in the new era of learning, technology plays a fundamental role in the processes of teaching people. Hundreds of digital education tools have been created with the purpose of giving autonomy to the students, improving the administration of academic processes, encouraging collaboration, and facilitating communication between teachers and learners. Nefertiti Dukes state that the use of technology in the classroom or outside the classroom via online is no longer up for debate. It is now extremely clear. The effective use of classroom technology online drive students' results.
Hello, teacher and classmate. Today I'm going to continue talking about the last part of the chapter number 2, that is called theoretical framework. But first of all, I would like to define what technological tools are. They refer to software primarily that can be used to develop or support online courses content. In this case, the researchers noticed that technological tools help students to meet when want without facing any problem, and that is why integrate educational online tools into your classroom or at home will be useful. Some apps that pupils can use in order to have productive meetings are Zoom, Messenger, and finally Google Classroom. As a conclusion, researchers gave relevant information that demonstrate that pupils can have online meetings for working in their research project, likewise establishing an online schedule without any problem in each of the members of the group. Researchers could notice that every single app was useful and productive for online meetings. As following point, I'm going to explain the chapter number 3, that is called methodology. In this chapter includes information about how the researchers conducted this action research study. This chapter includes aspects like units of observation, paradigm and type of study, description of the environment, the operationalization of variables, sampling procedure, and finally the approach in the field of study, and so on. So now let's move on to an important point, that is paradigm and type of study. To develop the investigation titled Seminar 1, Students' Difficulties to Meet in Order to Work in Their Research Project, from the major of Licenciatura en Idioma Inglés, OPCIÓN ENSEñanza at Universidad del Salvador, FACULTAD Multidisciplinaria de OCCIDENTE, the researchers went over into a qualitative paradigm and also an explanatory study to collect suitable data. Furthermore, the researchers team conducted an action research study. This project helped seminar to students and the teacher in charge of the subject. So now it is time to move on to the description of the environment. In this point, the current research seminar 1 students' difficulties to meet in order to work in the research project was planned to be developed at the University of El Salvador, Santa Ana, El Salvador. The population involved in this investigation were fifth-year students. However, because of the obligatory quarantine due to COVID-19 pandemic, the researchers developed it at home. Even though there was not a physical place to meet, researchers used technological tools to develop their action research study. The following interesting point is units of observation. In this part, the investigators took into consideration students who had already taken the subject research method and also enrolled in Seminar 2 of Licenciatura en Idioma Inglés, OPCIÓN ENSEÑANZA at University of El Salvador. In this research study, only one group was taken into account for the investigation, chances for meeting, how to arrange their schedule and use technological tools in order to work in the research project during semester 2 2020 at Universidad del Salvador, Facultad Multidisciplinaria de OCCIDENTE. Now I would like to explain to you the sampling procedure. This research project followed a convenient sampling procedure from subject seminar 2. A convenient sample simply includes the individuals who happen to be most accessible to the researchers. The researchers asked students from the chosen group to be in the online interviews, giving its answers also an in-depth interview. All the students from the chosen group participated, so the census, I can say that, was pretty productive. As following an important point, research create a table of the operationalization of the variables, which contains some points that I'm going to explain some of them. Then, first of all, we have the research question that was in which way must students arrange their schedules so that they can meet at the same day and hour. As a second point, we have hypotheses, general and specific objectives, units of observation. In this part, the researchers explained who were going to be studied, the variables that were meeting, schedule, time, and technological tools. Definition of variables, which researchers define all the variables, the indicators that were observed during our interventions. Some of them were made decisions, available time, lack of knowledge, and so on. Also, we have tools that were online surveys, questionnaires, in-depth interview, and finally we have time. Another important point to be mentioned is research techniques. To obtain more specific information about the problem being studied, the researchers developed an in-depth interview. This interview was composed on 15 yes/no questions related to the main obstacles for having work meetings. All the interviews were through online applications. Finally, I would like to mention approaching the field of study. During the first semester 2020 in Seminar 1, the researchers found students of this subject have some difficulties to meet in order to work in their research project. In consequence, the investigators decided to do an online questionnaire to seminar to students and to the teacher in charge of the subject to get more information about the situation being faced.
During this participation with the population studied, the researchers collected data. First, they made an online questionnaire to students using survey app, which were 5 closed questions to check the indicators, meeting, and time. Here, students answered them according to their thoughts. Second, researchers made an online interview to students using the application Zoom. The 5 questions they were going to answer were structured so that they could share their thoughts, and in addition, an online survey that contained 7 closed questions and 8 semi-structured questions using a Microsoft Word document and sending it through Facebook Messenger to seminar teacher to help investigators to get different perspectives with the important information gathered from the previous instruments. 3.8 Methods to analyze the information. Firstly, researchers made sure if all the instruments were correctly filled out and numbered. Then, they arranged the information taken from the questionnaire in graphs using Microsoft Excel 2013 and Microsoft Word 2013 in order to present the results in an apprehensible way. Through this, the information was tabulated, and this data permitted investigators to prove that the pupils under analysis were facing difficulties for meeting to work in the research work. Finally, the researchers interpreted the quantitative and qualitative data gathered and compared them to verify if the hypothesis of change in action was proved or not. 3.9 Validity and reliability of data collection instruments. To corroborate the veracity of the information collected with the instruments, the investigators made use of validity to verify the exact administration of the tools to seminar students, and also they tested if the instruments applied to the population got the data needed for the purpose of the researchers and verified what was written in the research objectives. Besides that, validity took place in data collected. It means that investigators created a group in which every member of the research group could give his or her point of view of the situation and what he or she could see from the data collected. On the other side, it is very important to check the reliability of the implementation of the instruments. For doing that, the data collected by the researchers was not convincing or reliable. The investigators made use of retest reliability to quantify how predictable the result could be by applying the same tools 3 times to the same population. Lastly, through the usage of triangulation, the researchers gathered to compare the data they collected and what they observed. Each investigator shared their own points of view in order to obtain different interpretations of the research problem. 3.10 Plan of Action. Planning. The plan of action began on March 15, 2020 with a diagnostic survey. Then, the initial exploration, approaching the field of study, took place on March 1, 2020, and in this process, the researchers observed and identified the problem in Seminar 1, Group 3 at the Universidad de El Salvador, Facultad Multidisciplinaria de Occidente. First stage of action. It took place between April and May 2020, and in this stage, researchers will show seminar students some websites and applications in which students can create an online meeting, such as Zoom and Google Meet. Second, the researchers taught them the essential use of these applications and websites. Also, the researchers uploaded a video tutorial explaining the importance of using those applications. Second stage of action, June 22nd to June 26th, 2020. In this stage, the researchers helped seminar students with different applications such as Google Meet and Facebook Messenger to manage their time and how to meet together at the same time. For this, researchers implemented the following activities. Taking into account that the students already know how to use Edmodo, the researchers scheduled an online workshop using the application Edmodo, explaining the importance and the usage of it. Third stage of action, August 2020. In this stage, researchers evaluated seminar students by making a report about the importance and benefits of online platforms such as Google Calendar, Google Meet, Zoom, Edmodo, and Facebook Messenger. Finally, the researchers gave students an online feedback through a video call in Facebook Messenger. 3.11 Ethical aspects. During the development of this action research, the research team took into consideration the integrity of the students as they were a vital part of the process. The first ethical aspect taken into account was minimizing the risk of harm. Researchers avoided putting participants in any situation that implied danger to their integrity. Number 2. Privacy and anonymity. Questionnaires did not require students to write their names, and in the case of having interviews, their names were not shared. Number 3. Obtaining informed consent. In order to administer the research tools, participants were asked to their consent to begin. Number 4. Right to withdraw from the process at any stage. If for any reason a student didn't feel comfortable anymore, or if he or she felt unable to continue helping with the research, they had a right to withdraw from it whenever they wanted. 3.12 Timeline. This research started with the research information in March 15, 2020 and is finishing with an electronic written report and with this video presentation. 3.13 Budget. The research team calculated that has been spent $3,120. Chapter 4 Analysis and Interpretation of Data. This chapter comprises the analysis and interpretation of the collected data, which was classified and organized by the research team in order to triangulate the results obtained from the questionnaire addressed to the student, the questionnaires addressed to the teachers, and the in-depth interview addressed to obtain information of students' chances for meeting with the research objective of to reinforce Seminar 2 Group 1 students' chances for meeting in order to work in the research projects during Semester 2 2020. The information shown below was gotten from groups for students and critical thinking. A meeting is an event in which a group of people come together to discuss things or make decisions. Most of the time, the students try to meet together in order to work in their projects through internet or face meetings, but not all of the meetings become successful. As it is shown in Table V1, meeting per week, 2 members from the group 4 think that having 1 meeting per week is not enough because seminar is a subject that requires a lot of time to investigate and to analyze to do a great job. Also, they say, we need to have at least 3 meetings to work in our research project because it takes a lot of time to work on it. The other 2 members said having 1 meeting per week is enough because in 1 meeting can be established all the guidelines and tasks each member must do or follow. We as researchers know that having just 1 meeting per week is not enough to work in a research project to get a well-done job. That is why the researchers explain that it is possible to meet online as long as they compare the time they have available, taking into account that these meetings can be short but also productive. 4.1.1 Mode of communication for online meetings. Before an online meeting, it is good to tell the mode of communication that will be used during any process to make it easy. The researchers realized that the students clarify the mode of communication they will use in order to have good and organized meetings. They watched as the students worked and answered some questions. In addition, to measure some reasoning, the research team used 2 items which were categorized as yes and no. And as that can be seen in graph B2, the students' mode of communication, 100% of the students obtained the in favor item.
4.1.3 Make decisions. This is another indicator that belongs to the variable chances for meeting. To measure the reasoning, the research team used 2 items, which were categorized as follows: yes and no. As it can be seen in the graph B3, it is shown that the teacher in charge of the group thought that the majority of the students use online meetings to discuss and make decisions about the research projects. Teachers showed that students made purposes of their online meeting were for educative purposes. 4.1.4 Table B4 Participation in the meeting. Evidentially, in Table B4 Participation in the meeting, the investigators observed that all the members provide opinions and thoughts about the task when they meet online. When the students were asked about if all the members participate to contribute in their online meeting, they answered, yes, all the members of the group try to participate and discuss actively about our research project. To conclude with this, the investigators explained that being aimed to participate in a meeting would be fruitful because chances were that they could listen more carefully and pay closer attention, so they could have gotten much more out of their time. 4.1.5 Realistic plans. It is best to be realistic when planning at the beginning of the project and revising the plan. Researchers watched as the students worked and answered some questions. In addition, to measure the reasoning, the research team used 2 items, which were categorized as follows: yes and no. As it can be seen in graph B3, the 75% of the students voted yes. On the other hand, the 25% of the students voted no. And we have schedule. This is a variable that belongs to the second specific objective, which was to help students arrange their schedule so they can meet at the same time and hour. And it is important to mention that to establish a good schedule that will help students to meet online and have better opportunities to develop their research work efficiently. So that here the investigators presented some graphs that showed the usage of an agenda recorded for a meeting and organization for a meeting based on the students' answers. As investigators saw some difficulties in this indicator, during the intervention, the researchers shared a PowerPoint presentation and they taught the participants how to create and use an agenda. All those things were done for having an organized meeting. The following graphs and tables showed the results about how students were able to use an agenda and to record a meeting to be more organized. 4.2.1 Usage of an agenda. Evidentially, not all the students use an agenda to plan their meeting, but to organize a meeting online is really important, because if students were willing to create an agenda, their meeting could be more effective. As it is seen in the graph C1, the 100% of the students do not plan an agenda for the meeting, knowing that this strategy could be very useful while working in their seminar research projects. 4.2.2 Table C2 An agenda for meeting. The group 4 said, when we are in the meeting, we already know what we have to do because we have talked about on WhatsApp group. In spite of this, sometimes when they are meeting, they tend to realize that they have something else to do and that was not in their plans, so that the researchers recommended them to create an agenda before a meeting, because in this way they could organize the important points that will be developed during the meeting, therefore they can have fruitful results. 4.2.3 Recorder for a meeting. As a result, in graph C3, the students showed in 100% that they didn't record or documented their online meeting. This could be a good option when a member of the group could not be in the meeting. They said that all the members of the group were in the meeting because they agreed in dates and time they could get together. It is understood that in this way they didn't need to record or document their online meetings. In Table C4.1, bring a recorder, the members of the group answer, when we are working in a research project, we need instantaneous ideas, answers, and opinions that will be implemented as soon as we finish the meeting. So, if a member of the group is not present in the meeting, he or she won't be able to give his or her ideas in the moment we need them. Investigators added that it was necessary for all the members of the group to have a recorded meeting because it could be pretty helpful not only for the one who was not in the meeting, but it could remind the important points of the meeting. 4.2.4 Organization of a meeting. As it is shown in the graph, the 75% of the students from Group 3 answered that they didn't plan a day for online meeting, while the 25% answered that they planned the day for getting together in order to meet online and to work in the research project. 4.3 Lack of knowledge. And this is a variable that belongs to the second specific objective, which is to empower students with the use of technological tools such as Zoom, Google Calendar, Google Meet, and Facebook, so that they can work in the research project. Analyzers showed to the participants by using Zoom a video tutorial. When everything was understood, the participants practiced on how to use the application by doing a video call in Zoom and scheduling a date for an online meeting in Google Calendar. By doing those activities, they learned how to schedule their time in Google Calendar and Zoom so that they can meet at the same day and hour. 4.3.1 Absence of knowledge using technological tools. The researchers measured the students' lack of knowledge in using technological tools. They watch as the students work and they answer some questions. In addition, to measure the reasoning to the research team used two items, which were categorized as follows: yes and no. And as it can be seen in the graph, the students' lack of knowledge about technological tools, 100% of the students obtained the in favor item. These students did not have trouble understanding what they were asked. 4.3.2 Advantage of technological tools. As it is shown in graph D2, the 25% of the students thought that the usage of some applications through smartphones, tablets, and computers didn't improve students' online meetings, while the 75% answered that their usage improves the online meetings. They said that apps help them to meet when all the members have chance to do it. They also answered that these types of applications have a very positive impact since this provides the opportunity for students to meet in a different way, but with the same purpose. 4.3.3 The usage of technological tools. Given the option yes and no, the teacher answered affirmatively to the question. Do you think that the usage of some apps through smartphones, tablets, and computers improves students' group online meetings? Nowadays, more than ever, the use of apps for online meetings has become popular, making noticeable all their advantages and benefits in the field of education. Virtual meeting have made learning a more dynamic process, letting students be instructed wherever they are, which provide them safety and saving of time. Conclusions and recommendations. To begin with this chapter, 5.1 Conclusions. Regarding Seminar 1 students' difficulties to meet in order to work in the research project from the major of Licenciatura en Idioma Inglés, Opción Enseñanza at Universidad del Salvador, Facultad Multidisciplinaria de Occidente. The main factors in this project are meeting, time, schedule, and technological tools. By means of the administration of several instruments, the investigators observe that students have gained knowledge in the following aspects: time management, opinions, and organization of the meetings. 5.1.1 To help students arrange their schedule so that they can meet at the same day and hour. 5.1.2 To empower students with the usage of technological tools such as Zoom, Google Calendar, Google Meet, and Facebook Messenger. 5.1.3 As a conclusion, the research team agrees with the hypothesis. The implementation of different platforms such as Zoom, Google Calendar, Google Meet, and Facebook Messenger can reinforce Seminar 2 Group 3 students' chances to meet in order to work in the research project from the major of Licenciatura en Idioma Inglés, Opción Enseñanza at Universidad del Salvador, Facultad Multidisciplinaria de Occidente. In a nutshell, it is true regarding meeting, time, schedule, and technological tools, since there was a positive change after the innervation of the researchers.
5.2 Recommendation. In this section, the research team includes recommendations regarding Seminar 1 student difficulties to meet in order to work in the research project. These recommendations are meant to help the students, the teacher, and future researchers who work with similar situations. To the teacher, 5.2.1 The research team suggests having a couple of online meetings in Zoom or Google Meet, dedicated to create an online for an ideal meeting. 5.2.2 Researchers think that the teacher should give students more opportunities to practice their skill with data processing tools. 5.2.3 The researchers think that a couple of meetings via Zoom or Google Meet in order to talk about Google Calendar as tool for creating better schedule and agenda can be very helpful. To the students, 5.2.4 Students should start being more organized with their time. Websites like Time Doctor and YouTube channels like Thomas Frank are recommended for helping students get familiar with time organization. 5.2.5 Students who have more knowledge about the use of technological tools should share their knowledge with the ones who have difficulties with online platforms. 5.2.6 Set objectives before every group online meeting. It is recommendable that the students write a list of objectives and show it to the teacher before every online meeting, so that the students already know what to achieve during the meeting and the teacher can keep track of the student progress. To future researchers, 5.2.7 Future researchers should be aware of their own problem for a meeting. They need to take into consideration that if they plan to help others with their meeting, they should first deal with their own difficulty for online meetings. 5.2.8 Future researchers should know how to carry their own agenda. Some websites like Time Doctor provide a list of time management apps, and it explains the way each app works. So this is all for the final presentation of Group 1. We hope that you enjoy and get familiar with this common problem in classes. So take care, blessing, bye.